HIMS.
We'll probably get started now. It's a little after 2. So good afternoon to everyone that's joining us, transitioning from BrailleNote to BrailleSense. Our host for today's webinar is Damian Pickering. He's our Regional Sales Manager for the West Coast. We also have with us Andy Leach, our Regional Sales Manager for the Midwest region. I mentioned earlier, if you didn't hear that announcement, as you come in, I will be muting everyone. And at the end of the webinar, we will unmute you, each of you, for a question and answer session at the end of the webinar. So what we're going to be going over is basically, are you ready for the upgrade and how the upgrade works? Studies between the BrailleNote and the BrailleSense. Text-sensitive help, the options menu, key, say, and changing document type, just to using BrailleSense, fear, and of course our question and answer session at the end. I'm sure most of you know about HIMS, but who's HIMS? HIMS is a U.S.-based sales support and repair center. We're customer-centric in our values. We are truly unique in our products and features. And of course, we are assistive technology users ourselves. We are a global leader in the development and manufacturing of assistive technology for the blind and visually impaired. We continuously strive to lead the way in new product development and have proven our leadership in the assistive technology industry by being the first to market with countless new innovations. So with that, I'll hand it over to Damian and Andy to discuss about the upgrade.
Well, thank you, Lisa. This is Damian Pickering again. I'm the Western Regional Sales Manager. I'm actually based in California. And so you get a good sense of our voices and so forth. Andy, why don't you do introduction?
Hello. This is Andy here, Andy Leach. And as Lisa said earlier, I am a sales manager for HIMS, and I have a lot of the midterm states. And I am, home base is the Dayton, Ohio area. For anyone that may be out there listening and interested, the day one of the Patain tour in Pennsylvania. So we are outside of Philadelphia today. We in Harrisburg tomorrow and outside of Pittsburgh on Thursday. So if any of you people out there in Pennsylvania can make it to one of the Patain sites, we would love to see you in person.
Great. Thanks, Andy. So I think you got our voices, not much of a chance of confusing the two of us. So again, I'm Damian. So for the record, both Andy and myself were both blind. We're both users of our Braille technologies, and in particular, users of the Braille Sense. Now, Andy's been with HIMS a little bit longer than I have. I've been with the company about 1.5 years, and some of you, may be aware of this. Others may not. Well, Andy and I both and worked together at Freedom Scientific years ago, and then we went kind of separate ways before meeting back up at HIMS, and I spent about 6 years working for Humanware. So this topic of transitioning from BrailleNote to BrailleSense is something that's very fresh in my mind because that's the journey that I've taken being at HIMS. So my very first week at HIMS, I flew into our home office in Austin for some training, and it was introduced to a brand new note taker, and was apprehensive because, of course, when selling these products, you have to really know them and be able to demonstrate them, know what they do, and I was very familiar with BrailleNote, not as familiar with BrailleSense, clearly. But within the first couple of days, I found that the curve was much less than I'd anticipated. I immediately found some things that I was very impressed with. I just found that learning the new product was much intimidating than I'd thought, and the bits were, came right away and were a lot. So
I want to throw in another key word here.
Oh, sure.
Damien's talking about the benefits, and it's less intimidating, but a word you want to throw in here is intuitive. Because, and we'll get to this point further as we get into the webinar, but what you get when you learn the Braille Sense are also some transferable skills. Ones that you've already learned from using the computer, or maybe things that will make you a better Windows user.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I think it's we'll do this later on in our presentation, but the reason I think it's essential really to start mentioning that idea of intuitive is because Humanware has really positioned the BrailleNote as the intuitive solution, the intuitive note taker, something that's designed for the blind, and they've kind of marketed that point very effectively over the years, and so it even kind of worked on me, and after brief exposure to the Braille Sense, I really had to rethink that whole thing. So, really our purpose today is to address those of you who have either recently traded in your BrailleNote for a Braille Sense, or people who are thinking about a trade-in. We do have a very generous trade-in program going on right now. So for a 32-cell Apex, if you're looking at trade-in towards a 32-cell Braille Sense, we're offering a $1,500 credit. If you have an 18-cell Apex, again, if you're trading it in towards a 32-cell, we're looking at providing a $750 credit. And, if you're looking at other models and so forth, we can kind of work on a case-by-case basis and provide you with a trade-in quote. But, so we're going to look at, start by really looking at the similarities of these two note takers, because they're not as different as you might think. We will cover some of the differences, but really seek to show how those differences, for the most part, are advantages, that there are reasons to move forward with a change. So let's start by the very first time you turn on a BrailleNote or a Braille Sense. So when you turn on a BrailleNote, as you know, you're automatically placed in a main menu, and the way you navigate through that menu is you space to go forward, you space to go backwards, you hit enter on the thing you want. So the menu kind of shows you all that's available to you. So I just, by point of comparison, I turned on a Braille Sense here, the Braille Sense U2, and I'm in a main program menu. The first item that comes up is File Manager. That's just, happens to be our first item in the menu. But I'm going to do the same thing I would do if I was a BrailleNote user. I'm going to hit Spacebar.
Word processor, W, reader, K, email, E.
And moving forward, kind of finding differences that are there. Now I'll hit Backspace. So I'm not going through the whole menu, but basically...
As you notice, though, as David's moving through those menus, aside from landing on the obstacle, the object that's in focus, at the each one you're hearing a hotkey. That key could be pressed also means the first letter navigation to go into that menu once you got more familiar.
And of course, the BrailleNote users, you're going to know that that's basically the same methodology on a BrailleNote. You've got your main menu, space forward, backspace back, here on the thing you want. Once you know what you're looking for and you know the hotkey for that item, you can accelerate your navigation, be a little more efficient, and jump straight to that thing. Now, on the BrailleNote, you have some additional navigation options. Along the front edge of your BrailleNote, you have thumb keys, and a lot of people really love those thumb keys. Other people, and I'll note that we don't have thumb keys on the front edge of the Braille Sense. We do have some other controls that give access to our media player and some things like that. But what we have is scroll buttons on either end of the Braille display itself on your Braille Sense. So your buttons are going to be identical to your middle two thumb keys on your BrailleNote. So those buttons allow you to pan forwards and back as you're reading in Braille, to navigate lists and menus and so forth. So, I mean, if you're going from BrailleNote to BrailleSense, thinking of the two buttons at either end of the Braille display as identical to your middle thumb keys, then you know exactly what they do. So, other things again that are I think helpful and identical on both machines. Both BrailleNote and BrailleSense offer context-sensitive help, and a key command to activate that is the same. So it's the space with the letter H, so space with dots 1, 2, 5. And if you're in a menu, you're going to get messages that describe kind of how to navigate that menu. If you're in email, you would get commands and hints that pertain to email. If you're in the word processor, etc. So that space
context sensitive.
Yeah, it's going to give you the you information about the application you're in or the task that you're working on. Of course, maybe I neglected to say that, overall the devices, what they do are very similar. A note taker, you would expect to have a word processor, email, address book, an organizer, a book, player, book readers, all of that. So you're going to find very similar core applications, and you can use these devices to do, similar days' work. So again, we've covered the navigation, basic navigation of the menu, that there's context-sensitive help. Another thing that I think is remarkably similar is the options menu. So again, for the BrailleNote users, O with the space bar, open up your options menu, and this is where you would be setting your kind of user preferences. What Braille code you want to use, whether it be grade 1 or grade 2, or whether you want if you're using USA Literary Braille or UEB. Both machines do support UEB to some extent, and that's kind of the whole UEB question is something we'll cover on another day.
That's probably one for a complete webinar.
Yeah, it could be. It really could be.
the thing to know is that we're pretty compliant with it, and you know, moving forward, depending on your job and what's going on, you may be required to learn it. You may not care.
Right. So space with O on the Braille Sense, it's the very same command. Gives you your options menu. So here you have access to all those user settings, changing volume, changing your keyboard echo, whether you have power on off sounds played or not, all those different type things. So again, we're really pointing out how very similar the basics are on both devices. Differences, say we've gone into a menu like that. The exit command on the BrailleNote is space with E, and the exit command on a Braille Sense is space with Z, like zebra. So it's, is intuitive than the other. I don't know, but they're, once you know that, it's pretty similar there. So we'll do our command to get back to main menu. And so as Andy talked about a little earlier, you noticed that you have hotkeys to jump instantly to a specific program once you know it's there. So word processor W, that's the hotkey, and it happens to name on either device. So I'm going to go ahead and just from this menu type the W. This is on the Braille Sense, and if you were able to hear that, top of document. So again, this section is, we're still covering similarities, but this is the first important difference. Because of course, BrailleNote users will remember when you type W or hit enter on word processor on the BrailleNote, you're put in the keyword menu. So you have to scroll through or navigate that menu to do different tasks like printing, embossing, open a document, create a document. And once you create a document, you have to decide which folder and or drive. You have to give it a document name. And so there's several steps you have to go through before you're in a blank document ready to Braille. So again, on the Braille Sense, we hit W from the main menu. It said top of document. We're already in a blank document ready to Braille on the Braille Sense, which is similar to how Word behaves on a Windows PC. I'm going to go ahead and type the days of the week in Braille here. If you can comment, Andy, while I'm doing that, you can jump in there.
Well, I would just say, while Damien's typing, if one of the things you're going to find as we go through today is that between some of our commands that are very similar to what BrailleNote users already use, and even things like combo boxes and edit boxes for some of the applications that we have written for the Braille Sense, they're very much the same feel and very much a feel similar to a Windows-based PC. And we'll get into a little more of that, but just realize that it's not one of those systems where everything you do is different. It's a system where there might be a few different things you do, but applications, you're going to become familiar with those things, and it's going to make very much logical sense.
Right. Okay, so I did go and I typed the days of the week. So I wanted to have a little text in my document so that I could demonstrate the navigation keystrokes. Now, at Humanware, along with presenting the BrailleNote as the intuitive device, they really emphasize Keysoft a lot, and what's about Keysoft, and it's very consistent, and all of those things. But those of you who do know JAWS and Windows know that a lot of the keystrokes that you use are actually JAWS commands. They're Windows keystrokes. Just happen to be Windows key commands. In a similar way, a lot of what people think is Keysoft is really not Keysoft at all. It's just note-taker architecture. So you
could date that all the way back, for anybody that's been with this game for a long time, all the way back to Blazy devices.
Absolutely. I mean, even maybe earlier to
maybe the Braille.
Yeah, VersaBraille, Braille and Speak. So, for example, go to top of document. It's 1, 2, 3 with the space bar, or 1, 2, 3 chord, as some people might say. So I'm going to do that.
Top of document Monday.
So, top of document, it says Monday. So, of course, bottom of document is going to be 4, 5, 6 with space, or 4, 5, 6 chord.
Sunday.
So there's, top of document said Monday, bottom of document said Sunday. I'll go back to top.
Top of document Monday.
So let's say I want to read the current line, and again, this is, on either the BrailleNote or the BrailleSense, space with dots 1, 4.
Monday, Tuesday.
Say I want to navigate for one word. That would be space with dots 5.
Tuesday. Wednesday.
And I want to go back by a word, space with dot 2.
Wednesday. Tuesday.
And, character, of course, would be space with dot 6 to go forward by character, space with dot 3 to go back by character. And then, all the things like, so current line was space with dots 1, 4. Current word is going to be space with dots 2, 5.
And character will be 3, 6.
So I'm at Wednesday. Now, again, we're, still in identical territory. On the BrailleNote, if you use backspace in combination with any of those key combinations, you're going to actually delete that current line, word, character, delete of document, et cetera, et cetera. It's the exact same thing on the Braille Sense. So here I am. My little cursor shows me I'm on the word Wednesday. So command to say current word is going to be space with dots 2, 5.
Wednesday.
Says Wednesday. And if I do backspace with 2, 5 and to delete my current word, Wednesday. And now I'm going to go to top, and I'll navigate by word. So Monday,
Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
Wednesday's gone. So you see that the key command architecture is the same on both. So, we've really kind of gotten into this territory of showing that the learning curve is really not nearly as much as you might think. So far, we've really spent most of our time emphasizing the similarities. So, now I think we're ready to move to some of our key differences of the devices. So to really emphasize this, I want to talk about the save a document. Now, remember we talked about when we opened our word processor, the Braille Sense immediately puts you in a blank document ready to type. The BrailleNote forces you to go through several steps of choosing the task you want to do, choosing, say, if you're going to create a document, folder, drive, name, all of that. So one nice thing about that is you've already got everything named and so forth. If you exit your document, it's automatically saved. And, you know, it would already have a name and all of that. On the Braille Sense, to look at how do we save things, how do we find out what's available to us there. So something that we didn't cover, into your regular Perkins-style Braille keyboard, your Braille display, your cursor routers. We talked about the scroll buttons on the Braille Sense that are similar to the thumb keys on the BrailleNote. There are 4 function keys, 2 to the left of spacebar and 2 to the right of the spacebar. Going from left to right, your very first function key will always take you to your main menu and put on your first item, which is the file manager. So you could think of that as doing the full cell with the spacebar on the BrailleNote, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with spacebar. So no matter what menu you're in, no matter what task you're doing, that command, in this case, function key 1 on the Braille Sense, always takes you to your big starting point. Function key 2 is your application's menu key. So you could think of this as just like the Alt key on your Windows computer. So if you're in email, it'll give you the menu for email. If you're in a book reader, it'll give you the menu for that. So of course, we'll come back to this, but we're in the word processor.
Just program menu is
right,
what really that means.
It gives us the menu of all of our options for the word processor. Jump over the space bar. Immediately to the right of the space bar, function key 3 is just like your tab key. So we'll come back to that. Your 4th function key is like escape. So your menu key, function key 1, your program menu key, like Alt, function key 2, tab key, function key 3, and escape, function key 4. So I'm in the word processor. Again, I'm going to hit the 2 program menu key. It says File, pull down. Now I'm going to see what else is available here in my word processor menu. So I can either use my scroll keys at either end of the display, or I'm going to use basic navigation keystrokes space with .4. My edit menu, so for copying, deleting, all those things. Go to, say if I'm in a very large document and I want to go to a certain page, a certain line, that gives me those choices. Here's for reading commands, the read menu. Here's layout. This is more to when I want to emboss or braille, print or emboss my documents. Then I have the layout menu for those things. So one more time, I'm back at the file menu. So I'm going to hit enter here to open the file menu.
Open the word processor, W, backspace O, menu item.
So open new word processor, backspace O. We're going to come back to that because that's in the section. I'm not going to go through the whole, menu here, everything you can do with files, but it's all the obvious stuff. But I'm going to scroll up with .1 and the space bar.
Exit, Z, space.
There's exit, space with Z. We talked about that earlier.
Dictionary, D, backspace, enter, D.
The dictionary.
Settings, D, common dialog, enter, E, menu item.
Settings.
Grid, D, space, P, menu item. Save as, common dialog, space S, menu item.
So save as space with S. So again, if you could hear the voice of the Braille Sense, it's listing the menu option. Of course, I could hit enter to activate that, but it's also showing me the hotkey. So for frequently used tasks like save as, for example, if I learn that the key command is space with S, then I don't have to go through the menu to find things. So when you're learning the device, it's handy to hit your function key 2 menu key and just explore to find the menu layouts and what commands are available. But once you're a little familiar, it's really handy to be able to just use hotkeys to be more efficient. I'm going to do space with Z to just close the menu. I am in my document that lists days of the week, minus Wednesday, which we deleted. I'm going to go ahead and hit that space with S for save as command. It says no name.txt. So if I were to just go ahead and cancel out exit, what I had written would be saved, but it would be saved as no name.txt. But here I'm going to just type in name, and I'll call it weekdays. Okay, so I've got a file name that says weekdays. Now, enter at this point, and I would have a document called weekdays.txt. The default file type on the Braille Sense is a text document, and that's regardless of whether you're typing in to Braille, Grade 1 Braille, UEB, what have you. That's a nice advantage because when it comes to sharing your files with other people, emailing them as attachments, where people may be opening them on a computer or another Braille Sense or even BrailleNote, a TXT is going to be something that will work with having to convert files. But let's say I do want to change the file type, and I'd really like this to be a .doc Word format. So here, we're Save As dialog box. So for those who are familiar with Windows and JAWS on the PC, would be the that you would get from file name to file type. Well, the answer is tab. So remember that function key 3 to the right of space bar is just like your tab. So I'm going to tab from my file name weekdays, type TXT, and use my scroll buttons that are just like the thumb keys on the BrailleNote. I'm going to scroll up, BRF, doc. Boom, there it is. I'm going to hit enter. What's doc?
Saving. 100. Loading.
And it said weekdays.doc, its own contracted Braille, because my Braille is showing up in grade 2. So
What is it? It didn't close it. It just saved your current file. Changes that have been made to it.
So this, covers what he was talking about earlier. If you already know how to use Windows and JAWS on a PC, and you're coming at the Braille Sense for the first time, and you kind of know that the Braille Sense follows a Windows logic, then it really gives you some pretty informed guesses when you're trying to figure out, how something might work, or where you would find certain commands, and just knowing that you've got that tab key and something like an alt key. I found, as a person transitioning from BrailleNote to Braille Sense, that I was really able to make some educated guesses, and it was really rewarded because they were right. I'm going to compare Save As on the BrailleNote here. So the command space with S on the BrailleNote is the same thing. but how do you get to change the type? Those you who are the kids, the longtime BrailleNote students or users, you know that it's space with X that you hit repeatedly and you cycle through a list of available types. You could do that several times. I don't remember exactly how many until you get to Word format, and then you'd hit Enter, and then you would have a Word document. But I really think it's worth asking, what is intuitive about that? How do you figure that out? You don't have it doesn't follow a particular logic. Really, someone has to just tell you that, or you have to, dig down and read through the manual, and you find out, my goodness, backspace with X repeatedly from the save as command. So again, I'm just throwing that out there to kind of challenge that assertion that we've all sort of carried around with us for the last 10 years, that, BrailleNote is the intuitive solution. I mean, I'm maintaining that if you're starting from ground zero, you don't know either one, that either device is about equally easy or difficult to learn. If you're starting from knowing a BrailleNote, then BrailleSense is actually pretty easy to learn. If you know Windows, then BrailleSense is, also pretty easy because it follows that same logic. And then one other sort of side of the coin benefit, if you don't know Windows and learn BrailleSense, so maybe you're a younger student in school, when it's time to learn JAWS and Windows, you're going to have a leg up because there's going to be a familiarity that you foundation that you've reinforced by learning the BrailleSense. I don't know, it isn't a scientific study. I don't know exactly what the percentages would be, but there is a definite group of students out there that really get into a BrailleNote comfort zone. It's so easy, and they're comfortable with what they know. And when it comes time to learn Windows and JAWS, they're really resistant because it has such a different feel. It's definitely outside of that comfort zone. And much as we'd like to believe that you could just get by with a note taker, and in this world, I mean, so far been the case. I mean, my go-to choice is a note taker. It's very user-friendly, comfortable for kind of keeping track of my personal details and things. But so far, I still do use a laptop and JAWS and Windows, mostly in my personal life. I mean, there is an app, and I do go back and forth. I do write my, my reports and, expenses and things like that on BrailleSense. But, I mean, and I think Anne would agree, there still is a real need, if you're going to be competitive in terms of jobs and vocation, college level things, that you are going to need to know JAWS and Windows at some point.
Windows, you're going to have to know. If you're in an educational environment, you may get by with NVDA, but you're going to do something specific, like a computer programmer, for example, or something that's going to require some work on the software out of the box to perform functions. Like it or not, you're going to end up with a copy of JAWS. If your vision to the of not being able to use magnification. So note takers, though, still add a lot of value. I mean, for things on the go, you don't have to boot a laptop for things. Even before I got into this stuff, when I used to be a mainframe programmer, programmer, I had a portable device for meetings and for notes and for taking down projects that I was working on, because it was handy and convenient. And it didn't mean that I couldn't move that information later on to my computer or laptop if I wanted to, but it was great to have that access to speech and Braille when I needed it, to take it with me. And, you know, is a note taker, can you honestly say it's as powerful as some of the PCs today? No. But it doesn't mean that there's not plenty of value add there, and there's not plenty of efficiency benefits to having it.
So, well said. So, look at some of following up on this Windows logic idea. So, just like on a Windows PC, you can have multiple applications open at the same time and switch from one to the other. We can do the same thing on a Braille Sense. So, for you, little trivia geeks out there, we can actually have 7 different applications or tasks open on Braille Sense at the same time and switch between them. So if you remember when we were in the word processor in the file menu, one of the things we heard was open a new word processor backspace with O. I've got my weeks document. I'm in that document. I'm not closing it. I'm leaving it open. Weekdays.doc, you heard it. So I'm going to do the command backspace with O because that was the hotkey that it told me in the menu.
Saturday.
And as top of document, I'm now in a blank document. I'm going to go ahead and quickly type, maybe not all of them, but I'll do a few months of the year. February, March, April, May, June, July. Okay, so top of document, 1, 2, 3 space, January, bottom of document, 4, 5, 6, and it says July. So I've got, some months of year. I named this document, so it should say no name text. So on the PC, what would be the command that you would use to from one text to the other?
Is it Alt Tab?
Tab, there we go. So remember on the BrailleNote, we have function keys, 1, 2, 3, 4. Function key 2 is your Windows or your program menu key, just like Alt. Function key 3 to the right of the space bar is just like your Tab key. So I'm going to press function key 2 and 3 together, just like Alt Tab.
Word processor. Sunday.
And Saturday, Sunday, I'm back in my weekdays document. I'm going to do F2 and F3, like Alt Tab again.
Add name, word processor 2. .txt insert mode right. Static box. January.
And I'm back with those of the year instead of days of the week. So you can see how handy that is. It it's very useful when it comes to, like, say, cutting and pasting from one document to another. Maybe you're working with a source document that you've downloaded from the web. Maybe you have a Bookshare book that you've downloaded and you're working on a book report. You can copy and paste from one easily to the other. Whereas on the BrailleNote, you can't really have 2 documents or programs open at the same time. You're sort of forced to switch from one to the other. So, of things that we haven't covered, there's many advantages to the Braille Sense. For example, we have a Dropbox application that makes file sharing very, very convenient. We have social media things. I mean, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, right? Makes Jill a dull girl. So we've got Facebook, Twitter,
Facebook,
YouTube. Is a great one. I mean, it can be for playing your, songs from your favorite artists, but it could also be a research tool for school. You can find a channel for Bill Nye the Science Guy and, do a little research. Now, of course, you're not in the visual part of the videos, but you do have all the audio available. You can live stream it, or you can download it and play it back later when you're not connected to the internet. I think mentioning our Bookshare and NLS Bard download apps, they're extremely user-friendly. You enter your username and passwords, and if you're connected to the internet, either via Wi-Fi or Ethernet, you can go directly onto the collections, and there's a very just streamlined, user-friendly interface that lets you search for books or periodicals. You can choose a category and then just scroll through the category. When you find the thing you want, just hit enter. It automatically downloads. You can also enter a search string, so if you have a title or an author or a key phrase. But basically, it's in about 6 steps. You can locate a book, download it, have it automatically unpacked, versus, I don't know how many steps, but, 20 more steps to perform the simple task on the BrailleNote. So, things we've covered some in webinars. We may cover some of them in greater depth in future ones. I think we've really shown the basics, a little bit about what is similar, that you don't have as much of a learning curve as you might have thought. Some of the advantages to working with the Braille Sense. One thing I want to mention for those of you who are really looking for more information, we've been working very hard to put more and more useful training information, make that available to you. We've got a series of explainer videos, short videos that cover, different tasks or aspects of many of our products, including the Braille Sense. One thing that we recently completed, I'm not 100% sure if it's posted yet, but if not, very soon, that's relevant to today's topic, is it's a video that covers how to convert your KWB files from your BrailleNote to Word format for use on the Braille Sense or a computer. So again, the BrailleNote by default is creating proprietary Keysoft, keyword files. Those open on another device. So this is something that you have to do on the BrailleNote. So if you are considering a trade-in, definitely take a look at that video and make sure that you do convert. You can convert the contents of entire folders, so it's actually a pretty quick process. Make sure you save those folders with all your old BrailleNote files as Word documents on a SD card or a thumb drive, and you'll be able to work with them on your new Braille Sense. So we'll be doing more things. Some other topics that I think would be helpful is transferring the contents of your address book from your BrailleNote to be able to use that on your Braille Sense, things like that. So if you have any other ideas, certainly we're always open to suggestions of how we can make your life a little easier. And, we're happy to just with any of you on an individual basis on making this transition as easy as possible. Anything you would add, Andy?
Well, I would just say check our resource center often, because we're always adding things like what you said earlier, and I would stay tuned to some questions. Call us. Some kind of video that some BrailleNote users think that we could do that would benefit you as far as certain tasks. We're always open to that as well. So that's a summary of anything I would have to add at this point.
Well, maybe why don't we open it up for questions if anybody out there has any questions or comments.
I will be opening up to questions or comments now. Feel free to ask your questions, submit your comment. If you want to type it in the chat box, you can certainly do that, and it will be read out loud.
And we really appreciate having you all with us this afternoon. Some of you are doing this through your lunch hour. We hope also you've either already had a chance to vote or you're going to get out and vote. We certainly don't want to think that we obstructed you from exercising your right as a citizen out there.
Stephen, did you have a question?
We do have a question here. Michael, go ahead. So I'm in a menu. Right now I'm currently in the File Manager menu, and on the radio folder, I'm several down.
Okay.
Did we lose?
No, still here.
The speech dropped out.
Yeah, we lost the audio. We got the File Manager.
And radio folder. Yeah.
Okay. So, getting space, you select the folder so you can move it a different driver. Whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you move a file or a folder, when you're going to perform a task on it, like move it, copy, paste, you do select it first, and the way you select it on the Braille Sense is with the space bar. One of the things is, like, say you're in a folder and you want to move, say, 5 different files. That's where you select each one, and then when you're ready to say copy, the command would be enter with C. I mean, this again kind of follows a Windows logic, and we're kind of going a little astray here, but we'll cover this. So just like on Windows, Control with C to copy, Control with X to cut, Control with V to paste. You're going to use the Enter key like the Control key. So Enter with C is copy, Enter with X is cut. You navigate to where you want to move that folder or a file or a group of files that you've selected, all with the space bar. And when you're ready to paste, do Enter V, and it will move the folder or the files that you've selected. Another resource I do want to mention is the California School for the Blind has developed a Braille Sense guide about 30 kind of lessons. It's sort of lesson-based where they introduce, how to do different things in the context of a sort of a larger lesson that maybe incorporates several similar tasks. That's something that's free. It's a download. You can get it through at the CSB website. We can send you a link. I know that our plan is to have a link to that training guide on our website.
Probably in the resource center.
In the resource center, but certainly you could speak to any of us individually, and we can make sure that you have access to that resource as well.
I have a question here in the chat box. What are the requirements for the trade-in?
Well, the requirements are that if something minor is wrong with it, we're probably not going to do much, but it's got to be able to work.
So we're going to want, it's helpful for us to have the serial number of your trade-in device, and you need a quote. Basically, we're going to give you a quote that reflects the trade-in credit, and then you box up the unit and send it to us. You would write trade-in on the outside. Once we have the trade-in, we verified that, then we would process your order at the reduced price reflecting that credit. I mean, there could be some other options. We could charge you the full price before we get the unit and then issue you a credit once it was in hand, but I think it'll more straightforward to you transfer your files and do the things that you would want to do first, assess the unit, and then we process the order once we've received that.
And actually, this is Lisa, and I do work here in the HIMSS office in Austin, Texas, and basically the unit just really needs to turn on. If the unit can turn on, then It's good to go for a trade-in.
You're gonna, make sure that every dot is in perfect working order. It's just the basics,
Well, by the same token, it can't come up with like a Braille display that's blank.
Right.
Right, or we don't want to hear sloshing water, when we take the unit out of the box.
We take it out of the box and it's all sticky from where somebody spilled a pop on it. But we're reasonable with that. We're not trying to be unreasonable, and that's not the point of the trade-in. But, you meet minimal trade-in requirements of the device, and we're good.
Any questions? Comments?
Wow. So, Keysoft, talked a little bit about this earlier. There are hops to jump to specific program. From what I heard from you earlier, this Braille Sense has the same thing, right?
Yeah, there are hotkeys on both devices that once you know your way around, you can jump to a specific program without having to navigate through a menu. So that's certainly in the similarities category.
How do you change drives? Like, say I wanted to put an SD card into the Braille Sense. How do you navigate to that SD card from, say, the file manager?
So the file manager,
you would do it in the file manager. What you do is once you're in the file manager, you're going to use your .4 cord or your .1 cord. You're going to navigate through file manager, network. If a thumb drive plugged in, it will see that. If there's an SD card in it, we'll see that as well. What add to that, Damien?
and you can also use your scroll buttons at either end of the display. So, File Manager is the first item in your main menu. You would hit Enter on File Manager. The flash disk is going to be the first option, and that's where all your internal are going to be on the Braille Sense. And as Andy said, you can scroll with keystrokes, .1 space or .4 space, or use your scroll buttons, or you can use first letter navigation at that point also. So if you know there's an SD card in there, you could type S for SD card, hit Enter, and then you're now on that drive. Say you've gone into your flash disk and maybe you're in the Documents folder, which is one of the default folders, and you're looking at files. And then from there, you want to navigate to the SD card. You hit backspace, and that backs you out a level. So it takes you out of your folder, back to your folder list. Then backspace again, it takes you off your folder list back to the drive list. So you're at flash disk, and then once you're on that drive list, you would scroll, navigate to whatever the available drives are.
And for the scroll keys, you take the thumb keys on the apex, but they're made out a little bit differently. So which correspond to which?
So it's identical by default. You have two keys on either end of the display, and they're aligned kind of vertically. So the keys that would be closest to you on either end of the display would be panning to the right or down. The keys that are further away from you on either side would be panning to the left or up. So it's like the up keys would be like your middle left thumb key, and the down scroll keys closer to you would be like the middle right thumb key. Now, just for your information, in Options menu, you can customize what those scroll keys do. So, for example, if you wanted the keys, on the left end of your display to behave as, by default, and then you could set the right-hand keys to scroll by word, sentence, paragraph. I mean, you have some different options, but out of the box, the keys at the left and the right, are, form the same functions.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. Well, guys, for a good hour now, so do we have one last question or two before we let you all get out to vote?
Let you all know a recording and the PowerPoint presentation to this webinar will be posted to our website in about a week. If you register for the webinar, you will receive an email notification when it is posted. You can always go back and reference the recording and read through the PowerPoint. Any questions?
Well, you want to maybe go over and let people know all the ways that they can get in touch with us for more information?
Absolutely. So if you do need more information on this topic or any other topics, you can always call, click, or email for more information. You can call us at 888-520-4467. You can reach our sales team at sales@ems-inc.com. And if you have any questions about the webinar, future suggestions for future webinars, or you need a transcript of the webinar or what have you, you can reach out to webinars@ems.com. HIMS-Inc.com. And tech support questions, you can always send those to support@HIMS-Inc.com.
Well, once again, this is Damien, and on behalf of Andy and Lisa, we'd all like to thank you for spending some time with us this afternoon. And please do tell a friend. Our webinar series are scheduled for the second Tuesday of every month. We would love to get any feedback about if you find these useful and suggestions for future topics that you'd like us to cover. And with that, go forth and prosper, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.